Eve and I'm a songwriter. And if you would like to be a songwriter or you're just interested in songwriting, I'm going to tell you how I came to be a songwriter. So hopefully you can take from my story some practical and actionable steps that'll help you to get where you want to go. And if you've just started to write songs, you're right at the beginning, but eventually it's something you'd like to do more, or you're actually at the point where you're pitching to publishers, but it's just not quite getting picked up yet, this video is really going to help you. So stick with it to the end and you're going to get some really practical tips, as well as a little bit of my personal story. Now, everybody starts with songwriting in a slightly different way, depending on your own musical background and your interests. I was primarily a singer, although I also play piano and a little bit of guitar. And I wanted gigs as a singer, basically, but I didn't want to run into copyright issues of sending out demos of music written by other people. And also, I wanted to tell my own story and sing about the things that were personal to me. So like a lot of songwriters, and possibly like you, I primarily started writing for myself, although at this point in my career, I write more for other artists than for myself. So I had sung in a choir, and as part of that, I'd done some improvisation on a film score, and I thought, if I can improvise, I can write. If I can make up part of a tune, I can make up a whole song. You know, it's got to be that simple. But of course, it isn't. But anyway, that was my first step to songwriting. Did that, sent out a few demos. Really, at that stage, it didn't take me very many places. You know, I did get some coverage in the local press. I got a few gigs. I got out on the circuit and I met people. But at that point, it was nowhere near being professional. But that was actually a really important point in the development, where I was meeting other people and getting their feedback and seeing how they went about things. So in my professional life at that point, I was working for a disability charity with people with acquired brain injuries, but I myself have quite severe rheumatoid arthritis and really got to the point where I couldn't work and a career change was called for. So I applied to do a Master of Music degree in Songwriting at Bath Spa University, because the Royal National Hospital for Rheumatic Diseases was also in Bath and I could be treated there for my condition. Now, this is something I really want to stress. The education part of my journey was essential, because I had this belief that a lot of people have, that songwriting is like something you just naturally, intuitively do and you don't have to study. It like hits you like a bolt from the blue. But put it this way, if you play guitar, you didn't just sit in your seat and suddenly you were able to play guitar flawlessly. If you sing, you probably had some training in that. If you produce music, you at least went onto YouTube and studied how to use, say, elastic audio. You know, information did not just spring up in your brain without you seeking it out somewhere. So I found by studying songwriting formally, I not only learned a lot about song form, which enabled me to write in different genre, which is why I'm employable, but I met people who would be really influential in my future career. My tutor, one of those people, but also my classmates, because your fellow students of the day are your colleagues of tomorrow. So by co-writing with those people, and co-writing is a really essential thing if you want to be a professional songwriter. Very few major commercial songs are written by just one person, although some are. By co-writing with my fellow students and later down the line with other professional songwriters, I saw how other people went about things and how they did certain things better than me. And I learned an awful lot about what my strengths and my weaknesses were within songwriting. And then I tried to address those things. For example, I'm hired quite often as a lyricist. I went out and I took piano lessons again to improve my knowledge of harmonics, which is now an awful lot better than it used to be. And so that period of formal study was actually very important. And it did another thing. You know, I mentioned how your fellow students of today are your colleagues of tomorrow. It gave me the start of something that every songwriter needs, and that is a network. Having a network and having a solid base of relationships is something that is just absolutely essential in songwriting. And we're going to talk a little bit in this video about how you can build that network, where you can find people to co-write with, where you can find publishers and people who might be interested in working with you, and perhaps even artists who might like to record your stuff. There are some places that you can go where you can meet people to co-write with and you can form those relationships. If you live within the UK, on the first Thursday of the month, there is a meeting at the Tileyard complex, which is the largest recording studio complex in the UK, in Notting Hill in London. The Tileyard networking event normally draws about 1,000 people. It's a good idea if there's someone you really want to meet to send them an email and say, I'm going to be at the Tileyard this month. Are you going to be there? Any chance we might meet up? It's a great place to meet people, and I've definitely made connections there. You can also make connections online. You can join something like Nashville Songwriters Association International, which has a big database full of songwriters, and you can sort of message people, ask what they like to co-write. I mean, the worst that can happen is that they say no. Put a little bit of research into their work first, though. Show them that you know something about them. Be a little bit respectful. And that is another great way of making contacts. Also, attending conferences is a great way of meeting people. We have an amazing conference in Belfast called Output Belfast. There's Resonate in Scotland, though there will be music industry conferences wherever you live, and going to those, but going and using the time wisely, because quite often in conferences, it's who you meet over lunch, not necessarily always the contents of the actual seminars at the conference. That makes the difference. So go armed with business cards, look at the delegate list before you go and see if there's anyone you really want to meet. Try and message them beforehand, because there can be a lot of people at these things. But you're probably getting the sense from me here. Reach out to people, and reach out to people only at the point where you have a really solid demo of your work good to go and some properly produced professional recordings. And that brings me on to something else that was totally essential in my journey, and I'm pretty sure it will be in yours. Before you start pitching to publishers and artists and pitching to the industry, get feedback. Now, if you've done a formal course, you can seek feedback from your tutors and from people from that institution. If you can get feedback from a producer, an artist, anyone you know who has a certain level of knowledge, the only thing I would say is get more than one opinion, because one person's opinion may be their personal taste, may be a bit subjective. But if 3 or 4 people are saying the same thing, that's worth listening to. But if you get too many opinions, then you're just going to get confused. So, pick who you really trust. Like, I have a friend who's an amazing producer. I'll ask him about the production of my songs. I have a friend who just knows everything about song form and writing for different genre. I'll sometimes go to him for advice. If I really want to publish a song, I have a publisher that I can talk to who will tell me whether or not it will suit the artist I'm pitching for, or be really honest with me if there's something wrong with it and it won't match the brief. So, picking a few people who you trust is a good way to go. But, if you just pitch blind and no one's ever given you feedback, your mum and your next door neighbour love the song, well, or your Facebook friends love the song, that's not really representative of how well it's going to do in the industry. So getting feedback, absolutely essential. I'm actually happy to give feedback if people email me links to info@evewilliamsmusic.com. But if you email me MP3s or WAVs, then I'll have to delete them, because some weeks I just get so many of them that it crashes my inbox. So please be considerate and send me links rather than files, if that's at all possible. So another sort of step on the ladder to becoming a professional songwriter is to attend Songcamps. So we've mentioned, how important co-writing is. At Songcamps, you basically are put into a room with other songwriters at maybe 9 or 10 in the morning, and you work all the way through to maybe 10 o'clock at night and have a fully produced broadcast standard song by the end of the day. It is very, very intense, and you're in the room with those people for a long time, but some really great products come out of those writing sessions, and it can be your opportunity to start writing with artists that you'd like to write for. Some song camps that I would recommend would be Out of the Woods in Norway. They're absolutely lovely people, and they have song camps around various themes. They mostly write commercial pop and electronic music. Well, they have in the past had country songwriting camps, Eurovision songwriting camps. Another song camp that's worth looking into is Las Negras in Spain, which is run by DWB Music based in England. They have a big interest in Eurovision, but also in commercial pop. Nashville Songwriters Association International, if you're American, runs a couple of songwriting camps during the year, some professional songwriting camps and some for aspiring songwriters, so they're worth looking at. But there are bound to be some camps happening near you. Now, they do cost money, and in a way it is like gambling. Like, it costs about £1,000 to go to Las Negras, and that song may be picked up and it may be pushed out, and you may start making that money back, or nothing could happen to the songs that you write during that camp and they could sink. So that is something to bear in mind. If it's something you'd like to do and money really is an issue, you can get support from the Arts Council or from PRS Foundation or Joe Strummer Foundation. That there's several avenues that you can go down to look for funding if it's something you'd really like to do. That sort of stage in the ladder gets you writing with all kinds of very different writers, quite often professional writers. I've written with some great artists at Songcamps. I wrote with JC Stewart. I wrote with Holly Tandy of the X Factor 2017. Just met some great people doing that. So, if you want to apply for those, it's a pretty good idea. Then once you've kind of built that network and you have an association with various publishers and with various artists, when a brief comes up, people will think of you and they will ask you. I find myself co-writing and writing for artists fairly often. COVID obviously put the brakes on things a little bit, and I haven't been able to travel as much as I normally do. In 2019, I was in Nashville, I was in Norway twice, I was in Spain, I was in London and other parts of England a few times, just frequently traveling. But we've all gone over to Zoom recently, and I don't know if maybe that's going to be a thing that lasts into the future, but songwriting camps via Zoom are definitely something that's happening. So, if you don't have the money to travel, or you have a day job and you don't have the time to travel, things are changing, so it may still be possible. And speaking of Zoom, I happen to have a songwriter circle that meets via Zoom on the first Thursday of every month at 7:30. If you would like to be part of that songwriter circle, I'm going to put a link in the description of this video where you can sign up. It's actually a really friendly, amazing group of people, because what basically happens is you play a song, and you can play live or you can play a recorded track via share screen, and everybody else feeds back in it. All the feedback is completely constructive, and if anybody gave feedback that wasn't constructive, I would kick them out, because I really want to keep the lovely atmosphere that we've got going in that group. There are all kinds of people in that group, people who are very, very good producers, people who are very, very good lyricists, some fantastic guitarists. So if you're a singer and you don't particularly write chords, and you would like someone to help you with that aspect, there are people on there who don't particularly write lyrics, you could be a good fit, and co-writes do come out of the circle. There is a private Facebook group, but you need to actually come along to the circle before you can join. So people can get feedback on their work, which, as I've mentioned, is an essential part of the process, between the monthly meetings. So if you'd like to join us, as I say, the link to the mailing list is in the description. So I'm hoping that some of this has been useful to you. If you have any questions about becoming a songwriter or the process of songwriting, do feel free to comment below and ask your questions. I answer every question, so please do. Or to email me at info@evewilliamsmusic.com if there's something you'd like to ask privately. And I really do wish you every success in your songwriting career. I've got several videos here on YouTube about the craft of songwriting, about writing lyrics, about crafting melodies, all that kind of thing, and courses in songwriting on Skillshare and Udemy and Teachable. So if you're interested in learning more about the craft of songwriting and about the business aspect, please do subscribe. And also my own music videos are on here as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and really wishing you every success on your songwriting journey.